Apple TV debuting its new show, The Studio, yesterday. This is coming after reports that the company is losing more than $1 billion a year from its streaming service. Apple trying to compete in an already crowded streaming space, and we're navigating how to play that sector with the Yahoo Finance Playbook. Joining us now is Laura Martin, Senior Media and Internet Analyst at Needham & Company. Laura, it is always great to see you and have you on the show. I want to start there with those numbers on Apple TV Plus, Laura. That was the information. They reported Apple TV Plus losing more than $1 billion a year on that streaming service, that they've spent more than $5 billion a year on content since launching Apple TV Plus in 2019. They did say they trimmed it by around $500 million last year. I'm just curious, listen, that made a lot of headlines, Laura. It got a lot of attention. When you saw those numbers, Laura, generally, did that dovetail with your own estimates and forecasts? Did you believe those numbers?
I did, and I think it's indicative of the fact that Apple is not really in the streaming business, that it's a hobby and not actually a strategic commitment, because Disney's spending $32 billion a year on its content budget, including sports. Netflix is spending $20 billion a year-ish. Warner Brothers is up at the $30 billion level. And here's Apple spending $5 billion. If news reports are right, they're spending $4.5 billion, and they're losing $1 billion of it. So they're not really a player in this space. They're dabbling, I would say.
And is that hobby for it worth it? They've gotten some cultural buzz on some of the shows and whatnot. I guess my question is, what does it do for them?
So I think the problem is that what they're going to fight for is engagement length. And what's really great, they have 45 million subscribers, we estimate, for their streaming service. And those 45 million subscribers, typically, if you look at Roku's estimates or the old Vizio's estimates, of 3.5 hours a day just watching this kind of content. So if they do a good job of streaming, they can double or triple the amount of time spent on an Apple device, which makes people buy more Apple devices. So it could be very helpful, but a $5 billion spending limit is just really indifferent. And they make a $90 billion of free cash flow a year. So losing $1 billion, like I said, not much of a commitment for Apple.
Let me ask you, Laura, about a different sort of Apple angle here, because you're an Apple bull. You got a buy on the name. I was just curious to get your take on what you make of all the headlines around the company's AI efforts, Laura. The reports about reshuffling the AI executive team and different headlines, Siri virtual assistant team facing delays. As a financial analyst, and you have a buy on this one, what did you make of that?
So I think Gen AI is a lot harder than it looks. I think that Apple has been slow. And I think they typically, because they sort of do have this wonderful installed base of loyal iOS owners, they don't act quickly. And now what's happening is they have maturity at the iPhone level, and they're looking for a product to drive replacement cycle. And they were hoping Gen AI would do it. But A, Gen AI didn't come out on time. B, it got very poor reviews by the experts. Many experts get early copies of these new iPhones with Gen AI, and they're tech experts. So it's really hard to actually meet their standards. So really negative buzz about the Gen AI capabilities. And frankly, most consumers on the street have no idea what you're talking about when you ask them about Apple Intelligence. So uncharacteristically for Apple, which is typically a great marketer, most consumers have no idea there's Gen AI or Apple Intelligence built into their new 16E iPhone if they buy one.
So what now, Laura, then? Can they salvage it? What do they need to do? We know that there reportedly were some management shakeups within that division. Is that sort of the right tack to take?
Yes, it is. You need people probably from outside Apple, I would guess, probably younger people that are more data scientists, more neural engine. A lot of these Gen AI people are not the old AI people. They're like neural engine think tank people, like reading white papers all day long, right? Those people are typically housed at Facebook or Meta or at Google, deep research. So I think that that's where Apple has to go to hire these people. The problem is the cultures are really different, right? Both Meta or DeepSeek, which is Chinese, or over at Google, or even Amazon like Anthropic, which is a big LLM. Those people, it's really hard for them to move to Apple, which is a hardware culture with annual release cycles, when Gen AI is changing sort of daily, weekly, monthly. So the timeframes are really different, which is challenging for Apple.
And so, Laura, but you still have a buy on this name. When you're talking to clients and explaining why, what's the thesis there then?
Oh, well, so what's happening is I think Wall Street loves the upside potential of earnings of generative AI. But as you know, we're in the investment cycle of the generative AI. We're building the large language models. So Amazon will spend $105 billion this year alone. So Google will spend 85 billion, Meta will spend 60 billion. So you're in the investment cycle. If you think that Gen AI is overhyped or too early or going to take longer than people think, Apple is a wonderful place to hide. Their CapEx is at 12 billion. It hasn't moved in 3 years. So it's and they're generating $90 billion of cash flow, which they're using to buy in your shares, not invest in generative AI. So if you think that Gen AI is overhyped, then Apple is a wonderful place to hide.
Well, and people have a lot of reasons to look for hiding places right now as well, Laura, for sure. To bring it back to the streaming conversation, there's one other name I wanted to ask about, and that's Amazon. And likewise there, this is a company where streaming is not its main business. It is spending money on doing it. Do you think that they're getting an ROI from doing that?
Yes, but I think Amazon are really world-class business people. So they look at that ROI holistically. They look at it as can we attract additional Prime subscribers? Can we make more ad revenue, which has an 80% profit margin, right? They've built a $56 billion ad revenue business, actual for 2024, in 5 years. Right. And so what helps drive that is in January, now it's going to grow faster this year, because in January, they made every single of last year, they made every single Amazon subscriber an ad-driven subscriber. So their connected television ad units, which are like $30 ad units, are driving growth upside. And they're connecting those to purchases on Amazon, which helps them sell e-commerce units and e-commerce advertising. So holistically, absolutely, it is a great economic play for them. I don't think they care if they lose $1 billion to $3 billion on the actual service. They're playing a bigger multi-subsidiary game here, including generative AI, because the more they have in their library, the better it teaches their large language models, which is a product they can sell to other people.
Laura, always great to see you and to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.